Welcome. In this explainer, we're diving deep into the spiritual heart of the Quran's third juz. This is a section just filled with these profound declarations of faith, of divine power, and practical guidance. We're going to explore how these verses, revealed centuries ago, can offer us clarity and purpose in our lives today.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We always like to begin with this beautiful greeting, peace and Allah's mercy and blessings be upon you, just to set a really focused and reverent tone for our journey together.
So, what are we getting into? Our exploration tonight covers the magnificent conclusion of Surah Al-Baqarah and then flows right into the powerful opening of the next chapter, Surah Aal Imran. It's a journey that takes us from law and history to the very essence of faith itself.
All right, here's our game plan. First, we'll look at the status of God's messengers. Then, we'll get into the absolute powerhouse known as the verse of the throne. From there, we'll talk about the principle of no compulsion in religion, touch on some practical guidance for our daily lives, and finally, see how the next chapter kicks off by reaffirming the central message of Tawheed, or the oneness of God.
Okay, let's jump right in. The juz opens by immediately laying out the roles and distinctions of the messengers sent by God. This verse right here really sets the stage. Now, while all prophets are chosen and honored, God granted each of them unique blessings and stations. It's really important to see this as a hierarchy of honor, not a change in their message, because the core belief they all shared was exactly the same.
And what's so fascinating is how specific the Quran is about this. It mentions that God spoke directly to some, like Moses. Others were raised in rank. And it gives a special mention to Jesus, Isa, who is given clear, miraculous signs and supported by the Holy Spirit. It just beautifully illustrates the different ways God empowered his messengers.
And to really drive home the point about where the messenger's authority comes from, the juz gives us this absolutely stunning example of divine power through the story of Prophet Abraham.
Just think about this story for a second. Abraham asks to see this not because he doubts, but because he wants to deepen the certainty in his heart. And the command he receives is, wow, graphic and absolute. But the climax? He just calls out to the pieces and the birds come flying back to him completely whole again. This is such a powerful, undeniable demonstration of God's sovereignty over life, death, and resurrection.
Seeing that kind of absolute power is the perfect lead-in to what many people consider the single greatest verse in the entire Quran, Ayat al-Kursi, the verse of the throne. It's all about his magnificent attributes.
Allahu la ilaha illa huwa. Just those opening words establish the absolute foundation of faith. There is no God, no deity worthy of worship except him. But then the verse goes on to tell us who he is. The first attribute we get is Al-Hayyu, the ever-living. And this isn't just about being alive. It means he is the source of all life, eternal, with no beginning and no end. Basically, all life depends on him, while he depends on absolutely nothing. And right after that, Al-Qayyum, the self-sustaining. This is so crucial. He doesn't just exist on his own, he actively maintains and sustains everything else in the universe, from the biggest galaxies to the tiniest particle, all without needing a single thing in return.
So you see, this verse is so much more than just beautiful words. It's like a spiritual fortress. Reciting it is a powerful declaration of God's oneness and his absolute power, and it's long been understood to be a source of protection for the person who believes in it.
And get this, right after that incredible, powerful declaration about God's nature, the Quran makes another profound statement, but this time it's about our human choice. La ikraha fid din. 3 short words in Arabic, but their meaning is massive. This is one of the most foundational principles in Islam. Faith has to be sincere. It has to come from the heart and the mind. You can't force it on someone.
And the verse actually explains why there's no need for compulsion. It's because the two paths have been made crystal clear. On one side, you have the right path, belief in Allah and rejecting all false idols. This is described as holding on to a handhold that will never, ever break. And on the other side, the path of error. The choice is obvious, and it's left to every single one of us.
Okay, so we've been talking about these huge cosmic theological truths, but the Quran, in its brilliance, brings it right back down to earth with very practical, day-to-day guidance for the community.
And this is what I love. It shows how comprehensive the Quran is. We get these clear rules on financial ethics, like the prohibition of interest and the command to write down debts. That verse about debt, by the way, is the longest single verse in the whole Qur'an.
And then it all ends with these beautiful, humble prayers, asking for forgiveness and mercy, and reminding us that even in our business deals, our ultimate reliance is only on God.
So as Surah Al-Baqarah wraps up, we flow immediately into the next chapter, Surah Aal Imran, the family of Imran. And the connection between them is instant and incredibly powerful. Just listen to that opening. After the mysterious letters Aleph Lam Mim, the very first thing we hear is a declaration of God's oneness. And notice the words used, the ever-living, the self-sustaining. Sound familiar? It should. Those are the exact same core attributes we just saw in Ayatul Kursi.
Now that is not a coincidence. It's a deliberate, beautiful way of reinforcing the central theme. The Qur'an is weaving this consistent tapestry, and the main thread holding it all together is Tawheed, the message of God's oneness. It's constant from one chapter to the next.
And this really brings us to the ultimate takeaway from this entire section of the Qur'an, the absolute, uncompromising, unifying message of the oneness of God. Because, as Surah Al Imran continues, it tells the incredible stories surrounding the family of Imran, like the miraculous birth of John to an elderly couple, and of course the virgin birth of Jesus to Mary. These aren't told just to be amazing stories, they're presented as definitive proofs that all power, all creation, all miracles come from one source and one source alone, the one true God.
So I'll leave you with this thought. This entire juz, from the stunning display of power over life and death to the nuts and bolts of daily life, it all revolves around this central axis of Tawheed. So the question for all of us to think about is, how can this singular focus on the oneness of God bring clarity, purpose, and light to our own paths today?